Ever find yourself dreaming of breaking free from the 9 to 5 grind, envisioning a business that will not only bring you personal fulfillment, but also make a significant impact on the world? Yet, somewhere along the way, the dreamy reality of entrepreneurship that you thought you were going to get was actually more like a grind of endless responsibilities and unexpected challenges. And it all starts to weigh so heavily on you. Well, what if I told you that the secret sauce to really having a thriving lifestyle business might just be a blend of self management, continuous learning, and a hefty dose of introspection? Yep, you heard it right. And that's what we're diving into today on Marc Haine Live. So, welcome to this episode of Marc Haine Live. This is where small business owners and entrepreneurs develop new skills to help them create the jaw dropping, show stopping experience that their customers and their employees deserve. I am your host, customer and employee experience strategist, Marc Haine. I am so happy that you are here joining me for this amazing episode. It will be amazing. I trust. I just had our guest on in the green room before we started, and her name is Monique Allen. She is the gardener of people, and it's amazing when you connect with people who share values. It is going to be an extraordinary show today. We are going to be exploring a transformative approach to not just growing, but truly enriching your lifestyle business. We're going to be diving deep into the heart of entrepreneurship, focusing on how to really unlock satisfaction and make a significant impact within the confines of your own business. It's about more than just profits. It's about cultivating a thriving environment for yourself, your team, and your community. So stick around, stay with us. In today's fast-paced world, entrepreneurs seek freedom and impact, but the journey is riddled with challenges. From the revolving door of staffing to the maze of scaling up, how do you navigate these waters without losing sight of your vision? And that brings us to our question of the day. So, what's one change that you've made in your business that significantly impacts your team dynamics and their productivity? I'd love for you to share your stories. Drop your stories and insights into the comments. I'd love to learn from you what you are doing in order to create those kinds of environments for your people. As I mentioned today, I am really thrilled to welcome Monique Allen, a visionary in landscape design and a champion for entrepreneurs and small business owners. Monique, known affectionately as the gardener of people, brings nearly 4 decades of experience to the table. Monique is the founder and creative director of the Garden Continuum and is a master creator, interactive employer, published author, and a fierce industry advocate. In nearly 4 decades, she has witnessed the landscape trade become extremely popular and, unfortunately, more commoditized, which has eroded the sustainability of our landscapes while undermining our ability to feel satisfaction from what we create with them. As the founder of the Lifescape method, a lifelong gardener, business developer, and educator, Monique has dedicated her career to reversing that legacy by creating alternative approaches and sharing actionable information to spread a positive message about how we can all improve our land, our lives, and our professional satisfaction through lifescaping and compassionate business building. In addition to running her own 7-figure business and publishing her first book, Stop Landscaping, Start Lifescaping, Monique is also an active business coach specializing in artisan branding, team building, curating a positive company culture, and succeeding as a woman in a male-dominated industry. My goodness, Monique, welcome to the show. I am so tickled you are here.
Thank you so much. I am really honored to be here. Thank you. Thank you.
So, Monique, your title as the gardener of people is really intriguing. Can you um, share how you serve your clients and what that became all about?
Yeah, for sure. So, I started my career as a gardener. And when you hear the term gardener, you think plants, you
Yeah,
think gardens, you think flowers. You don't think about people. And
right.
because I've been doing this for so long, what started to happen was that as I was growing, I was so focused on my clients, so focused on the service that I was forgetting about the people who worked for me. And it became incredibly evident that I needed to start thinking about the people more. And I had done so much work to create methodology around dealing with nature that I turned my sights and said, well, wait a second, we are nature. We're biological, living, breathing entities. We need to be nurtured. We need to be cultivated. We need to be tended. And that's not coddled, that's not babied. It's just how do we develop environments where people can thrive? And so as my business got bigger and I didn't have to do the actual gardening, I turned my sights to really tending the people within my company and training them to tend the land, but also to tend to the clients. And that allowed me to shift my focus and continue to grow.
And so you do some consulting now for other businesses. So how do you cultivate success and growth for your clients?
So for me, the big part about working with a clientele is being really, really clear about the service that you are offering. So I'm very clear early on, if you need bookkeeping help, I mean, I worked in bookkeeping and accounting for 12 years, so I know just enough to be dangerous, but I'm not your person, like go to this person or this person, if you're looking um, to learn how to be a garden designer, I could probably teach you, but that's not what I do.
Hmm.
What I'm really clear about is that I want to help my clients create an internal system within the company that is productive because it sits on a value system, it sits on systems, in general, standard operating procedures, really good clear communication, predictability so that somebody knows how to go through getting the job, getting ready for the job, onboarding, orienting, learning, upskilling, unlearning, so that there's some predictability. And I will
Hmm.
tell you that I flopped through doing this. It's not like I decided and was like, "Ooh, I'm perfect." It was more try it, get the feedback, figure out what's needed, and then do the next thing. And so what
Hmm.
I'm able to then do with my coaching clientele is to help them see with my eyes what is happening in their business and then begin to feed them some of these skill sets, and then of course they have to apply it. But it's really about shining a light on the reality that the minute you decide to open your own business, we were just talking about this with the
Hmm.
e-myth, the minute you start to open your business, you cease to be the gardener first or the designer first or the landscaper or the plumber or the whatever it is. You cease to be that first. You're a business owner, and if you have employees, then you're an employer. Then you're the trade professional.
Yeah.
And that's a really hard pill to swallow for most people because most people don't think of that going into entrepreneurship.
Right. I mean, people go into entrepreneurship because they love something. So, for instance, if
Yeah.
you love gardening and you've worked for garden centers and you know that you have capacity, then you say, "Well, I'm going to open up my own garden center." Right. And then
Right.
the disappointment happens. I talked to one mechanic, and he was behind the counter doing d- collecting all the bills. So as I came up to collect my car, he was there with the debit machine and the computer and all this. It's like, why don't you have somebody to do this? He says, well, I used to have somebody to do this, but then I ended up having so much staff. I ended up having to manage people, and
Mm,
I never had a chance to work on cars, which is why I started my garage. Interesting. And so then
interesting.
it became a question of, well, how do we shake that? I said, have you ever considered hiring a business manager? And he goes, what? Hire your boss. I told him, hire your boss, right?
Yeah.
He can keep you on. You can work on cars. You can get together once a week to be able to look at the metrics of success, the difficulties you're having and challenges you're having or whatever, but hire your boss, hire somebody to run your business for you so you can do what you love to do then, if that's the case.
Yeah, and I also think that, that can be very scary because, as you know, entrepreneurs tend to then feel a real sense of this is my baby.
Right.
The other tack could be, and it could be that you do both, but is how do we develop self-managing teams? How do we
Hmm.
create systems such that a team can self-manage so that they
Yeah.
they know the expectations, they know how to predict what's going to happen next. They're given enough information, connection, collaboration so that they can go off and self-manage. But that's not mostly what happens. What mostly happens is that the owner continues to sort of be the also the owner of all of the details, all of the information. They're carrying it all in their head. So
Hmm.
people have no choice but to make something up on the fly because there's no owner to talk to,
Hmm.
or always go ask the owner. And so the owner's tearing their hair out because they're like, leave me alone. You're always asking me. I
Why
just want
can't
to be
you
under the
take
car.
initiative?
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
So
yeah.
it's interesting because this is time and time again, and in fact, we were talking just before we got on about my book and the stories, and I have stories in my book exactly about stuff like this because I see it time and time again. Is that the owners and the managers feel I need to own this information because it's what makes me valuable,
Yeah.
right? And it's like as long as long as I have this information, and I've talked to chefs, I don't share my pizza recipe with anybody because why? You're afraid that people are going to steal your recipe? You're one pizza place out of a trillion pizza places, right?
Right.
And so it's so funny that people kind of do this. But what we're talking about today specifically is people have jumped into entrepreneurship. They're in this grind that we're talking about right now, and we want to help them convert their business into what we're defining as a lifestyle business. So before we do that, could we talk a little bit? Could we define what a lifestyle business is compared to a normal business?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, okay. So for me, the reason why a lifestyle business was so important was because I was embarking on other things. I had bought a house, I had gotten married, and this is almost 20 years into working. Um, and I was going to have a child. And all of a sudden it was like, wait a second, how do you work this voluminous work week and also be pregnant and have a kid? And then once you have the kid, how do you take care of the kid without shipping that kid off? Like, wait a minute, this doesn't seem right. And so there was this incongruity for me based on how I was working and what I was embarking on and what I wanted. So for me, a lifestyle business, and what I think really resonates with the people that I work with, is that they want to have this work leisure balance. So I wouldn't call it work life balance because I think work is part of life. Life is the whole circle. It's the whole piece. And what we need to do is look at all of the segments within it and say, does work have its place? Does exercise and health have its place? Does love and romance have its place? Does learning have its place? Does travel have its place? And we spend so much time talking about work life balance, thinking that it's achievable. And ultimately, balance is movement on a fulcrum. Balance isn't achievable. Balance is practicable, and we practice and make progress all the time. And when we look at it that way, we stop putting a pin in it like we're going to get it one day and it's going to be right, like I'm going to solve the problem and then I won't have that problem again. Well, you might not have the exact same problem again, but life is a flux of opportunity, issue, problem, and we learn and we level up and we get better and better and better. So it's not that the problems and the issues go away, it's just we become nimble. And if you think of a boxer, the way a boxer can float and move in a ring, it's because they've figured out how to dance through the fight. And
Mm.
this is what we're trying to do. Ultimately, To use another metaphor, we'll never know the ocean, but we can practice relating to the ocean. And so this is what we do in our lives. And so if we're doing it in our life, we can take it to our business, and then we can say, that's crossing a line. I'm going to yoga. I'm going to my kid's game. I am going to go get a massage. You know what? I am going to take that class and not be in work for a whole week so that I can take that class.
Hmm.
Those are the kinds of things that we start to feel empowered by saying. And what I see is when people come to me, they haven't taken a vacation for 4.5 years. They're missing their kids' events. That is slavery.
Hmm.
That's not work. And so a lifestyle business allows you to live in the full expression of all of the elements in your life, and not all the same all the time. It undulates, it moves, it breathes, but it allows you to look at them and be discerning about how you make decisions around your business and the other choices in that constellation of choices that you would make in your life.
Hmm.
And your business supports that. I think that the profit motive, as wonderful as it is, if it's just to have a bigger bank of money, it erodes the ability to understand, what is that money for? What is
Hmm.
it actually for? And so that for me is the expression of what a lifestyle business is.
And I think that's, you've come up with lots of powerful metaphors in how you've described this. I imagine that, and I'm going to play devil's advocate for a second and put on my hat of some business owners that I know. And it's like, it's fine for you to say that, but you don't understand my business. My business need, if I'm not there. And so,
Yeah.
how do we overcome? So, how does the struggle, the struggle of being able to balance that? So for somebody who's ingrained in it for 4 years, not being able to take a vacation and missing the kids' soccer games and hockey games, and having to get home late all the time for supper and stuff. How does somebody change that mindset from this is how I've been running for the last 10 years to now you're expecting me to make a change?
Yeah. That is a great question. And I would say that, again, most of the people that come to me come at a point where they have their hair is on fire a little bit. And
Right.
and I don't know, fire burns, kind of hurts. So when people are in pain, they are more apt to make change than when they have figured out how to somehow bury the pain in one habit or another, or one behavior or another. So by the
Hmm.
time they move into coaching, asking for coaching, they are a little bit more receptive,
And they're up to here.
and they're
They're
up to
not here.
here.
They're up to here.
They're up to here. They're literally drowning or burning, one of the two.
Yes.
So the first thing that I usually do is I try to get, so I love the whole the big leap, and this idea of incompetency, competency, excellence, and genius. One of the things that I try to do early on is reconnect with the passion, because that's actually a place where we move back into emotion, we move back into feeling, we move back into the energy body. If they're coming to me all hyped up in the limbic system because they don't know if they're going to survive, and then I push them into the prefrontal cortex so they're cognizing everything and trying to think it through, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
So the key is really to start with feeling, to start with the things that were engendering that passion and that drive initially, and see if we can go back. What was it that you loved? What, and now once they sort of reconnect it, what are you losing? What have you lost? This is a point in time where I often see tears. Men and women both move to tears. I remember the first time I worked with a coach and I got this kind of training, and I moved to tears.
Mm.
It's this realization that somehow you lost your way. And so from that, we try to determine, what is that area of incompetency or competency that you could field off to someone else? What's the one little thing? And usually what happens, this happens a lot with people who are looking to diet. They think they have to change everything, but that's not possible. You have to change just one thing today, one small thing, make one win. And then what we're trying to do is we're trying to trigger the winner effect in their mind. Because once you get one win, you want the next win. You become hungry for winning. And so those are the two methods that I use to start to get people into the change process.
Hmm. but again, entrepreneurs aren't doing this all by themselves. So how does the struggle with things like staffing and scaling impact the overall vision and day-to-day operations of somebody trying to convert into a lifestyle business?
Well, the good news for me in the coaching space that I'm in is I am a trade business. I own a landscape company. I've dealt with the revolving door of staffing. The problem with the way we recruit is we talk about things like headhunting and just all the terminology around getting team is consumptive. We talk about human resource management as though humans are a resource. Resources are consumable, and I like to sort of spin the idea. I actually got this from a guru, is that humans are possibilities, they're not resources. So if we can start to change our mindset about why we're hiring people, and I'm in a rough and tumble industry, I'm in an industry that's dominated by men and really has almost zero regulation in the state of Massachusetts. So people could pretty much do whatever they want. So we're having to change that paradigm from the inside. And I know exactly how hard it is to keep people. Owners have to start showing up. So if we can start to say, okay, here's a strategy for recruiting, but you can't just recruit and be done. Then there's a next step, and you've got to do this next step. And then there's a next step. And let's leave it at that. Do those 3 steps and see how you do. And then let's come back and revisit. And next quarter, you're going to do these 2 steps. And little by little, in increment, we start to make these compounding changes that begin to just slowly turn the wheel of experience. And that wheel of experience, it's essential that the wheel of experience for the owner starts to shift so that they can start to see the win. And then what happens is, I will tell you, for the staff that I've had with me for, gosh, I have some staff that's been with me for, gosh, 18 years, something like that. They've seen my shift. They can't believe, they're like, oh, remember the Monique of 18 years ago, right? So you're shifting. And the last thing I'm going to say about that for all owners that are listening, your business is only going to grow or scale to the capacity of your ability to manage that growth and scaling. And I have tripped on this myself. There are areas in business that I am not good at, that I need help, that I hire coaches. And so we have to be able to look in the mirror and say, where do I need help? And get it. Don't expect yourself to know it all, be good at it all. Allow yourself to reach out and get support, and then crush the things you're good at, limp along and practice the things you need to practice.
Would you say that that is a typical misconception that entrepreneurs have about growing their business? Is that, oh, I have to be able to do it all, and so I'm going to stay this because I can't do technology, so I'm not going to, right?
Yes. Yeah, and I see that in marketing a lot, especially when you move to the more altruistic kind of business
Yes.
minds where, you've got folks who are in, the health industry because there's such a really, really wonderful desire to help people be healthy. I mean,
Yeah.
what's more in service than that? But then somehow sales and marketing is yucky, or raising your prices is yucky. Well, we can't show up with a full cup in order to give and be in service if we are living in scarcity. And
Yes.
so things like marketing are something that I often see owners do not want to do.
Nope.
um, I also see that the money conversations are really, really hard. I remember the money conversations for me were very hard. I had a fantastic coach for a while who called me right out on my inability to ask for a sale. Literally, my inability. I would wow them with all my ideas and whatever, and then I'd walk away. He's like, "Why didn't you ask for the sale?" I said, "Well, I, I didn't know what I was." He's like, "Yes, you do. Ask for the sale." Well, I didn't have a contract or a thing. Doesn't matter. Ask for the sale. Get the emotional buy-in, and then follow up with your paperwork.
Yeah.
That was like revolutionary information for me.
Yeah.
So we're
It,
all
it
in that.
it's and it is. It's so I it's 90% mindset of what we need to do, and then there's 10%, I believe, capacity, because the mindset is, if I can't do this, I should be able to find somebody who can. right?
Of
And so to
course.
your point, like I know lots of business owners, and to your point, I visited businesses as when I was in economic development, I would visit businesses and you go into it and you go, where's the love?
I
Because it
know.
doesn't look like there's a lot of love in this business. And you come out and the owner comes out and is going, yeah, and you go, how's business? He's like, oh well, it's not, it's always busy, but it's kind of grind. And you get the sense that it's all about the grind. And to your
Right.
point, the minute you turn around and say, hey, I'm really interested. How did you get started? And the minute they take themselves back to 20 years ago when they had that first truck and when they did the first thing, their eyes start to shine, their energy shines, and they start talking to you about the possibilities that they
Yeah.
felt at the time. And so I think a lot of times these misconceptions, the mindset is always this, oh, I don't know how to do this, or they blame, oh, well, we're surrounded by franchises. They have marketing budgets and they have systems, and I'm struggling. And the franchisees are turning around, and go, oh, he's so lucky he can make his own decisions. Right?
So funny. It's so funny. There was something that I learned that you probably know this, but it was new for me when I first learned it, and it kind of really opened my eyes. And small businesses often will have the owner is doing both the visionary work and the operational work.
Right.
And you know, I I had a facility with both. I'm really visionary. I think very big and broad, and I'm thinking innovatively, but then it's going to die on the vine if I don't go and pluck it and then go and implement it. And what was happening for me is that as the business was growing, I was still required to be the visionary and being the implementer. And this was burning me out because I was trying to do both all the time, and one would sort of suck me dry. And while I was in that sort of position of feeling dry by it, the other one was languishing. And so I found that my attentions kept moving, and I just didn't have the support. When I finally figured out creating an office team that could take the ideas that I had and implement them, and then I had a production team, design, implementation, care, that they could then implement those things. What I had to learn was how to be available in service to each of those people and help them do their jobs with inspiration, help to keep them engaged by giving them that spark so that they could keep going. And that then fed me because I feel satisfied when I see people doing really good work, not because I'm like, you need to be working, but because I see their pride, their
Right.
joy.
Yeah.
And I think and again, I think you can speak to this, I think there's a resistance to hire help that's non-productive help, non-productive, like they don't have billable hours. And a lot of time it's that help that helps to free the technician mind to really express. And that's what you were talking about with, hire your own boss. Um, so anyway, that was a lot, but that was pivotal for me.
Yeah, and it's a journey I think everybody goes through. Part of the challenge, though, is you had to be willing to give up
Yeah.
on something. You had to be willing to not necessarily be in control of every aspect. And we see this in, like, especially in hospitality. I see owner operators who are the consistent micromanagers of
Mm,
the day to day, and they're constantly griping and complaining that nobody takes initiative. And but every time I tell them the salt and pepper have to be right here, and everybody keeps moving it here. And it's like, well, why are they moving here? I don't know, because they're idiots. I want the salt and pepper here. And it's like, but did you talk to your customers? Because maybe the majority of your customers are right-handed and they're putting it there because it's easier for them, right? It's whatever the issue is, right? But
right.
we get into these bubbles of mindset and we stop looking at what the objective is, and we're only looking at what is the how do I make this happen, or how can I make this happen. And it's like, no, we have to think about how can your team make it happen.
Yeah, and that entrenchment is hard to break.
Yeah.
You think about the stages of business where we have, there's this emerging stage, there's an evolutionary stage, and there's an entrenchment stage. And the key is to always be emerging and evolving. And when you hit entrenchment, understanding this is actually solid foundation, it's really good, versus I think I'm stuck in the mud. I
Right.
think I'm I think I'm living in the past. And this is so true when we look back and we see what happened when millennials entered the workforce, and how the Gen Xers and the boomers were just spinning, 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 and literally blaming millennials for every single employment problem and staffing problem that they had. That, quite
Yep.
frankly, they always had, but
Yep.
now they were just in a different little box. I just gave a keynote speech at the Cape Cod Landscape Association, and we talked about the Zoomers, the Gen Zs, and how they are coming into the marketplace. And the funny thing, who's complaining about the Zoomers? The millennials.
Yeah.
And so it's really, really interesting that we have got to be able to come back to the beginner's mind. And when we get really, really good at something, especially in the trades, right? You become a master in your trade. There is this belief that I know because I've done it for 50 years, but there could have been innovation. And so that is really stepping into that growth mindset. For somebody who's got a fixed mindset, that's a tough call.
Hmm.
It's a,
Yeah.
it's a
And
really tough call.
it takes a ton of humility to make that happen as well.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I noticed that Anna is on as well. She's watching right now. She put a nice comment about she's loving this
Oh,
episode. So Anna, I'm going to
hey,
invite you
Anna.
if you have any questions for us as we're going through our show. Feel free to put them in the comment box. Would love to see from your perspective if you have any questions that we haven't actually addressed at the moment. I'd love to delve into some solutions. We've talked a lot about kind of what you've been doing and kind of what the overarching kind of problem is and some
Mhm.
of the signs that people might have those problems. But if we can delve into some of the solutions to creating the lifestyle business of our dreams, I'd like to get to that right after this.
When the spotlight shines on your business, are customers applauding or yawning? In other words, how is your business performing? Make your business a star with the new book, Lights, Camera, Action, Business Operational Excellence Through the Lens of Live Theater by Marc Haine. Marc uses his business and acting experience to help you see your business like a live show, so you can create a performance your customers will never forget. Buy Lights, Camera, Action today at your favorite online retailer or directly at marchaine.com.
I am speaking with the gardener of people, Monique Allen, author of Stop Landscaping, Start Lifescaping. Uh, Monique, maybe a quick little synopsis. What is your book about?
My book is about how to approach a project. So if you want to build something that's big, that is going to take some resources, time, and energy,
Hmm.
how do we move from dream, from the idea, from that very foggy, just sort of concept, down into manifestation, into the full expression of the thing that you desire? In the trades, we tend to think very specifically about the one thing we have to build. So we might think, I'm going to build a patio. Okay, I'm going to build a patio. That's it. Right? It's very, very cut and dry. But there is a whole host of things before that patio ever gets built, a shovel ever hits the ground, and then there's a whole host of things after it's built. And so
Hmm.
what the book does is it looks at the tenets of Lifescape, which are that we have to approach any project, any business, any life, any marriage, any relationship, any endeavor with three main tenets. You need to have organization, you need to have health, that has to be a driver, and then wow factor. And that's because as human beings, we are absolutely driven by and we stay engaged with the wow factor. The problem is we like to lead with it, and it doesn't work if we lead with it. It's like lipstick on a pig. It's just not good. So we need to be really smart and look at what is organization, what is health, and then I tie that all in to systems. That systems thinking is critically important, and that when we think product first, we always make mistakes.
Yes. Yeah. And isn't it funny because we have Simon Sinek who has start with why. And there's something really foundational about starting with why is this a passion? Why do you want to do this? My wife is constantly like I see locations as I'm driving around and go, oh, that would be a good place for a restaurant. And then she would say, well, how long would it be from the build to you pulling yourself out and still being able to have free time? And it's like, yeah, you're right. It takes time. So she's my grounding. She's my
Yeah.
grounder person, right? To keep me, questioning, because to your point, you might have the dream and so on, but then you need to be able to look at the health of what you're building and the health of yourself as you're going forward, and then everything else around it. We are discussing how to tackle a crucial aspect of entrepreneurship today, and I really do believe that it's something we haven't covered on this show. This idea of building our lifestyle business. And we're talking about the challenge of building, growing, and scaling a lifestyle business. So we've uncovered some of the kind of that the path is filled with potential pitfalls in there. Um, if somebody is watching this, would you have some kind of go-to steps that they need to do to evaluate whether or not they're in this space, that they need to start looking at the idea of lifestyle business development rather than just business development?
Yes. And the very first is every lifestyle business is unique to the owner who owns that lifestyle business. You're
Hmm.
not going to have a blueprint for the lifestyle business
Right.
because each human is in leadership is different. And so the first step is really that introspection. It's looking at what's wrong, looking at what is it that is sending you down that spiral. What is it that is triggering behaviors that you want to stop? Um, that's important. And for me, a big start is time blocking. Most people don't have a good handle on their time, and they keep things in their head and they try to remember. And with all the tools we have today, I can't believe how many people I work with that do not calendar. They don't do any calendaring. And I think that calendaring and time blocking is really important. And it's very simple, but it's not easy. And the things is that in introspection, where you would say, where am I most productive? And what are the times of the day, of the week, where my business needs me the most?
Hmm.
So I see this often. People will, like in my trade, we get up very early and we're out really early. And so the owners are often, going out with the people, but then they don't have a good shut off to come back and then do the work that they have to do. They sort of get sucked into the actual work that they're doing, as opposed to leaving it to the crew leader or leaving it
Yes.
to whoever is on site. So time blocking is critical. And for me, I time block the days and then I time block the hours within the days.
Wow.
And I color code it. I use a Google Calendar and I color code it. And I really recommend you do that. It's a great tool. There's a lot of other ways to do it, but time blocking is critical because we only have so much capacity to be productive. And this idea of the 8-hour work week and the 40-hour 8-hour day and the 40-hour work week, I mean, that's a construct. That's a factory construct. It doesn't mean anything. If
Right.
you're most productive working 3 days a week, that was my big experiment last year, was to work 3 days a week. That I was fine working long days. I didn't have any problem with that. But I wanted flexibility on Mondays and flexibility on Fridays. Um, Another thing that I implemented that anybody could implement is figuring out your time off in such a way that it's restorative. So what we do oftentimes is we erode our time off by letting work invade it. And so being able to have really structured bounds around your calendar is critical. And I needed help because I just work. And so I really needed help. So one of the ways I gave myself help was I decided one day walking on the beach, I think it was like a Memorial Day weekend or a Labor Day weekend or something. I'm like, I need more time. I have to pack up tomorrow. This is ridiculous. I need more time. And I thought, I wonder if all my employees feel like they need more time too. And so I had this crazy idea that I was going to implement for every Monday holiday. I pay my employees to be off on Friday too. It completely changed how I rested and then completely changed how they rested. And it's not rocket science. It's really, and you may not need that. I needed that. What is the thing you need to start to de-escalate that nervous system deregulation that gets you triggered? And I think managing your calendar, because time is time, right? We pretend that we're time managing. We're not time managing. We're self-managing. So if we look at the calendar and then manage yourself in that calendar, give yourself some time blocks and then practice. You're not going to get perfect at it, but you will make progress. And I would say that is the very first place to start. And that is a central and foundational element of organization.
I can imagine that probably the toughest part of that whole process is the introspection part of it, is being
Mm-hmm.
able to sit down and be honest with yourself. And I think that's where really coaching comes in. So if somebody's
Yes.
listening to this and wants to pick your brain and maybe bring you on as a coach, how can they get a hold of you?
They go to the lifescapecoach.com and just click the get started button. And I do complimentary first calls. Really love to talk to entrepreneurs and just help them see. I call these forensic calls. So I ask a battery of questions before the call, and then on the call, I create a recording, and then you get the recording. It really is, it's an honor for me to be able to talk to people. And then if it feels like a good fit, then maybe we work together.
That sounds grand. I love that.
Yeah.
Um, I'm I'm a big proponent that culture really is a soul of a company, and the leader, of
Mm.
course, creates that culture. What should owners know about when framing their company culture within the confines of creating a lifestyle business? I mean, you did it by turning around and saying, "We're gonna on holiday weekends, I'm gonna give you that extra day paid." That must turn your culture to such a positive, um, have such a positive effect over the long term components of how people think about your business and then how they talk about your business to their customers.
So, with culture, one of the things that I learned about culture is that culture happens whether you work on it or not.
Yep. It,
And
everybody's got a culture.
right, and every business sort of has its own intrinsic culture, and it is definitely a top down, but I know that I behaved in such a way where when I was overwhelmed, I pulled myself out thinking I just needed to separate myself, but that culture is going to keep spinning without you. So I think it's really, really important that owners are very, very clear about a culture they're going to be proud of
Hmm.
and a culture that they themselves would want to work in. And a mistake that I made was to allow staff to begin to spin the culture in a direction that is out, it's no longer in alignment with you. It's your job to pull it back. And the fear that I see so much. I can't tell you how many owners I meet, and this is really heartbreaking, how many owners I meet that are afraid of their employees. That happens because their employees are putting their back up against the wall and the owner is allowing it to happen. We're so afraid. We're so desperate for staff that we don't
Yeah.
want them to quit. And so we acquiesce to things that are not comfortable. If you take anything away from this podcast, do you create a culture that is one that you can hold your head up high, that you are super proud, even if everyone in your industry tells you you're crazy. I have people tell me I was crazy for the things that I was doing, but these were things that were so in alignment with me. And then what happens is the universe is listening, and you start to put this in your marketing, you start to put this on your website, you start to put this in your recruiting. And what happens is the universe begins to send you people that are like, you have 4-day long weekends? Sign me up. They're so happy, right? They love the work and they get that win. So
But
that's really the thing, is let it be yours.
yeah, but to your point though, it's not necessarily about the 4-day long weekends.
No, it's just an
It's about the
example.
values that are reflected by the fact that you turned around and said, you know what, I know I need this, and I'm sure my staff need this. So it is the values of being empathetic and to be understanding and have the humility to be able to turn around and look at what somebody's life would be like in their shoes rather than just ruling from the roost.
And what's important to them, right? So what's
Yeah.
important to me is being able to have very distinct time for my own self-development and my leisure. So I bought a motorcycle. I want to ride the motorcycle. I do not want it to ride. I don't want to ride it to and from work because that's just scary. I want to be able to have the freedom to ride it. I
Yeah.
do yoga. I want to do it a lot. I want to do it in the morning. I want to do it in the afternoon. I also teach it. I need space for that. My kids are grown, so I'm not parenting, but I have employees who are parenting. I have employees who have parents that they're taking care of. Oh my gosh, I remember that one. So I think the set of values that the owner has, what they're trying to build in their life, it's really like for us, it's like family first. Family is huge, and that we want to be able to say that we love our coworkers. That love is an
Mhm.
acceptable word in the workplace, and those are values. And we love nature. We're eco minded,
Mhm.
and so those values all, they bubble up, and then, oh, 4-day weekend. But you're right, it's not the 4-day weekend. It's all of the basis that creates this alignment between the people that work for you and what you're trying to build.
Right. Values attract values.
Yeah.
Yeah. This has been a very powerful conversation. When we come back, I'd like to talk a little bit about some common pitfalls that we should be watching out for when we want to translate our business into that lifestyle business. And we'll do that
Okay.
right after this.
When you're delivering an important speech to a huge audience, it's easy to lose your place or go way over time. Give yourself an advantage with the Pro Speaker Presentation Speech Timer app. No more checking your watch or calling for time. The Pro Speaker Presentation Speech Timer app keeps you on track with easy-to-see timers, even changing color for visual prompts during your speech. And you can set audio cues to practice, or set it to vibrate so you don't even have to look. Be the pro you know you are. Download the app at speakerpresentationtimer.com.
We are having such a great conversation, and I hope you are getting a ton from it. As you can tell, Monique and I are driven to support business operators just like you. So if you are planning a leadership retreat or a conference, feel free to contact us if you'd like to explore how we can work together. Our contact information is in the show notes. Monique, employee engagement is key in many aspects of it, and we were just alluding to that through the culture piece. When it comes down to this idea of keeping employees engaged, how do we keep them grounded within the value system and the culture that we've created?
So I think, again, we go back to systems. I really believe that you've got to write this stuff down. You can't just come up with an idea, an innovative idea, and then kind of throw it at your people and then be like, okay, go. And again, another thing that I did and realized that that doesn't work. You've got to write it down. And generally, what I say is what you want to do is write it down, say it with your mouth, and then train to it, and then come back and revisit, and be okay with tweaking. Be okay with somebody saying, so I like the idea, but that didn't really work, and not be offended. Try to figure out how you're going to make it work. One of the big things that I see that's an issue is broken promises. So an owner will say, yeah, we're going to review you. You're going to do a 90-day orientation. You're going to get this, you're going to get that, blah, blah, blah. And then they don't do it. They don't actually get that mentoring. They don't get that care. And so broken promises can erode trust so fast. Basically understanding that you're going into a relationship with somebody with implied trust, right? They're trusting you that they're going to get a paycheck. You're trusting them that they're going to show up and do the work. But then it has to go beyond that, and that you're at the lowest level of, it's almost like transactional trust at that point. But what we need to do is we need to elevate that trust so it goes beyond transactional trust, so that what ends up happening is there can be a breach, and it's something that can be repaired. That rupture doesn't actually tear everything down so badly that you can be like, oh my goodness, I know I said that. I didn't let, and you can repair. But if you keep trust transactional, you can't repair it. And once eroded, it's almost impossible to get back. So I think that's a really, really important place where people have to be ready to roll out an initiative by having the thought. And I will just add one more thing there, is if you can bring key employees into the process so they're part of developing the initiative and then rolling that initiative out, what will happen is you engender engagement, which is really great, but you also eliminate the fear of, well, maybe not eliminate, but you reduce the fear of change, because now they're a part of it.
Yes. Yeah, and what a great way to get buy-in. I remember the very first time we were doing a complete remodel of a casino, and I went to my head bartender and I said, you know, I would love your input on designing the next bar. And he looked at me, he goes, but I'm not a designer. I said, no, you're a bartender who works in the space every single day. So you have ideas about what would make your life easier and what would be. And he never even thought of it. And he was so tickled to be able to sit down and actually sit in a development meeting and saying, this is what I think we need in order to make workflow great and to make right. And it was sound and it was based on his experience. And he was absolutely tickled that he now has this legacy that inside this casino was the bar that he built. And he had been there
That's
for
such a
12
great
years,
story.
right?
That
And
is
so,
such a great story. Can I just say the one thing
yeah,
that I love about that so much is how there was no Marc Haine ego in that. Like literally, it was
right.
like you were able to move into a collaborative space and be very, very clear that in that collaborative space, everything that you did would be better with his help.
Yeah.
That is such a beautiful representation of a really, really healthy ego. And I think
Mm.
that's important because I do think we can get a little ego heavy as owners, and collaboration and invitation to be a part of a collaborative effort is really, like it almost never doesn't work.
Yeah, and you know, the worst case scenario is somebody comes up with ideas that are kind of far fetched, and when you actually sit down to do it, it becomes, oh well, I didn't think about that aspect, or I didn't think about this aspect
Right.
of it. And so, what you do then is you're actually just coaching responses by checking in on assumptions and belief systems and all that, and that's called coaching.
Yeah, I love it. That's
So,
beautiful.
are
Love
there
that
any other
story.
pitfalls you think entrepreneurs should avoid as they strive to implement some of what we've been talking about today?
Well, I think we talked about two really big ones. One is the time pitfall, and one is the
Right.
broken promises, the trust pitfall. Um, I think you have to look at the big picture. And I say that because I have definitely made decisions in business that have affected profit negatively.
Yes.
And one of the things that I'm trying very, very hard to embrace is the idea that, we look at these big multi-million dollar companies rolling out new initiatives and being really innovative, and we talked about SpaceX earlier, and having a loss. And in small business, loss is like you're bad, right? In business is like you took a risk, now let's see if we can fill the hole.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that a loss isn't something that can happen. I'm just saying that a blind loss is dangerous. Don't over leverage. Really make sure that the decisions you're making are having positive impact in all of the bubbles. So for me, the three bubbles are people, planet, and profit. That's the triple
Right.
bottom line. And again, it undulates. One gets big, the other gets small. It just like moves around. But if I just did a huge initiative to fully benefit my employees so that I was able to pay 100% of healthcare. It was just very, very important to me. This industry doesn't pay a lot of money.
Right.
I knew I was going to take a hit in profit, and I did it anyway.
Yeah.
So it's just going in with your eyes open and understanding that it's not always linear and it's not singular. It's complex and multi-directional. And so you want to have your eye on all of those balls. Use your bookkeeper, your accountant, your CFO if you have one. Um, get help, get buy-in so that you're looking at the big picture.
I love that. And you know, the decision to put in 100% healthcare within your team. Again, when you think about all the things that pull at our bottom line, all the different expenses that we have to contend with, what is labor turnover costing you? What is a lack of performance? What's lack of loyalty costing you? And so on. And so, again, you're creating a high trust environment, high trust culture where people turn around and they go, you know what, Monique is not just about the grind of the profit margin or bottom line. I mean, obviously, if there is no margin, there is no mission, right?
Right.
We need to make a profit as a business, but does it mean that we can't that we have to take all the profit? And you know, I appreciate and I want to acknowledge you for taking the opportunities to look at where can I make my team part of this organization rather than just the expense category on the financials. So I
Yeah, I
think that's
think
brilliant.
they know that, right? So at some
Yes.
point when as you're building your lifestyle business, where where is your brain trust
Yeah.
within that organization? Who are the people that have your back? And do they have somebody that has their back? Sort of going into the whole Gallup list and really understanding that, that culture has a lot to do with people's sense of safety, sense of camaraderie, sense of inclusion, sense of value that
Yeah.
you need it as an owner and they need it as employees. And as owners, we're often quite isolated. So even if we get it for them, we're still going to feel a little isolated because it is quite isolating to be an entrepreneur, an owner. So get yourself in a group, get yourself in a mastermind, get yourself
Yeah.
connected with an association, talk to other owners,
Yeah.
because that is critical, because you start to move out of why me.
Yes. Yeah. And, to your point, BNI, Vistage, Tech Canada and Canada, these are all great organizations to have you talking to non-competitors have different backgrounds, different experiences that you could leverage. It's brilliant. As we
Yes.
wrap up, Monique, do you have any last thoughts about what we've been talking about today? Anything we didn't cover?
I think I will just say that my last thought is that it is viable. There's a payback.
Hmm.
Um, it's difficult because you have to put yourself somewhat central. And as hard workers, especially the labor worker, the doer, the heavy doer, tends to move themselves out of the center so that it's about the work, it's not about
Right.
them. It is critically important that you start to work on you. It is
Yeah.
critically important that you begin to develop yourself as the best human you can be, because you will sleep better, you will wake better, you will work better, and then you will have better ideas. And you're such a great an example, Mark, just about this strength with ego in check. We
Mm,
don't need big fat egos that are me, 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 me. What we need is strength and that ability to introspect. And I think that is critical. And I think that's where the healing is going to come in the entrepreneurial world.
I love it. Thank you so much. Could you remind everybody just one more time how they can get a hold of you?
Yes, the lifescapecoach.com. You can just click the get started button if you want to have a conversation with me, or hop onto Monique.Allen on Instagram and DM me, or just hang out and see what I got going on.
Make sure you follow her because she's got amazing, amazing things. Monique, this has been absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing your passion and your expertise with us today. This has really been an amazing episode. It's been brilliant having you.
Thank you so much. It was my honor to be here.
Why don't you let me know if this was of value to you? As always, my offer stands. If you would like 30 minutes of my time to brainstorm your business with you and your team, feel free to book time on my calendar. The link is in the show notes. It's the one marked meetwith.markhaine.com. It would be my absolute honor for me to be of service to you. And while you're at it, why don't you go ahead and leave a comment or review about this episode? I'd love to get your feedback. Was this of value to you? And of course, if you haven't done so, why don't you make sure you subscribe to this podcast so you get notification whenever I bring you fresh new content with experts like Monique, really knocking it out of the park. Thank you for joining me today. My name is Marc Haine. I hope you stay safe, stay healthy, and I hope you dare to be the exception.